Yeah, hello everyone. Good morning. And in today's session, we'll talk about RDS database. Okay. So let me share my screen first. Okay. So we have one service in AWS called as RDS. RDS means
Regional data.
Relational database
relation,
services.
relational database service. Okay. So basically, why do we need any database service for our applications? What's the use of it? So, whenever we deploy any application, whether it is a healthcare domain application or telecommunications domain or any application, for example, even if you see this, right? Uh, we'll take our regular example, facebook.com. So, in order to store the credentials of the users and for the authentications, they need some database, right? So where they will be storing the user information and what he likes, who are his friends, and all the other stuff. Okay, so for every application, one database is required for sure to store the data related to the user. It can be any application. It can be Facebook, Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, or our Access Banks, or our even if you log into Geo, right? Even there we need to have any kind of database in order to store the user information like the username, the credentials, okay, and what kind of subscription he is holding. Okay, based upon that, the application will work for that user. Okay, so now we can provision this database in two regular types. Okay, so I mean, one is I can use RDS service in AWS. Basically, what this will do, this service will help us to easily set up and maintain database in the cloud. Okay, means if I go to this RDS service and if I select the instance type, I mean which RDS I want to provision. So if I select that, then AWS will help me to set up as well as maintain the database in the cloud. Okay, so here in databases we have two different type of databases available. One is relational database and one is non-relational database. Okay, so when I call as relational database, basically the information which is stored is in terms of tables. Means this is how the information will be storing. Okay, relational database. Okay, if I click this, okay, this is how the relational database will store its data. Means it will be in terms of different tables. Okay, and we have two different rows and four different columns. Okay, so here we have three different type of databases. One is students database, I mean one is students table, one is student codes table, and one is courses table. Okay, so in relational database, basically the information which is getting stored will be in terms of tables and columns. Such type of database we call as relational database. And also if you see the this diagram, right, so here we have three different tables and there is a kind of relation between these three tables. Means here we have an ID, this is very unique. Okay, and then we have student ID, this is also a unique key, and then we have courses, this is also unique key. So based upon these unique keys, there is some relation between these databases. So that's how the database will communicate if you run any queries. Okay, so what is unique key, what is primary key, I am not going to talk on that. Okay, so I will not be focused on different type of queries of RDS, but we'll focus more on how we can provision RDS and how to log in, how to create some basic tables. Okay, and how to search or take the backups for the RDS. Okay, so now when we say relational database, okay, So the information is stored in terms of different tables, and these tables have shared information between them, causing a relation to form between tables. So that's where it got the name as relational database. Okay. So and here, what are the different examples for this database? So we have MySQL, we have Oracle database, we have MariaDB database, we have Postgres database, and we have Microsoft SQL database. Basically, SQL means structured query language. Okay, so these are the different examples of our relational database. Okay, so once this is done, okay, then we have non-relational database. Non-relational data means anything which is not in terms of structured form, means there will be no tables and columns created for the database. If suppose you want to store a document, okay, then the document can be directly stored in the database. There will be no tables created, there will be no schemas, okay, there will be no rows and columns created. So any database which doesn't create a kind of tables, field, columns, and which are not structured can be called as non-relation database. Okay, or we can call as NoSQL databases as well. Okay, so what are that example? We have MongoDB, we have Pigtable, we have Redis, we have Cassandra, we have CouchDB. So these are the different examples for non-relational database. Okay, but AWS will support relational database, means out of these databases we can create by using RDS service. Okay, so now one second, guys. Let me copy these notes. Okay, let me copy these notes. I will be sharing these notes after this session. Okay. Okay. So RDS basically, as I said, it is something which will easily set up our DB in the cloud. Okay. And apart from that, when we use RDS, right? So we don't have any kind of maintenance on our head. Means if you want to take the backup, then AWS will automatically take the backup of your RDS instance. Okay. So if we are installing these database in our EC2, what will happen? We need to take care of the backup, we need to take care of the upgradation, we need to take care of the endpoints. Okay. So whereas if I use AWS service, then it is not required for us. Everything will be done by AWS, and we are just using that service and paying that service as per the charges. Okay. So as I said, we have two different type of database, relational and non-relational. So relational means something which is being stored in terms of tables and columns. Okay. Non-relational means that can be stored in any form. It can be document, it can be image, it can be PDF, it can be any form which is not structured. That we call as non-relational database. Okay. So these are the different examples for non-relational, and we have MySQL, Oracle, MariaDB as the example for relational database. Okay, clear, guys? Let me know if you are not able to follow or understand, because this concept is very important, and I am trying to cover each and every important points which we have in RDS. Okay, because this should be easy for you in terms of interviews. Okay, any questions? I think no. Okay, so we have this example in our previous session as well. So this is nothing but our three-tier architecture. So we have web server. For example, if you want to deploy any application, if you want to deploy any application or host any application, so what we generally do, For example, this is our application. Okay, so we cannot deploy our application alone. We need to have different components as well. We need to have web server, okay, and then we need to have database server as well, right? So these three components are something which will help us to deploy our application and store some data in the database. Okay, so this kind of architecture we generally call as three-tier architecture. So here we have three different components, that is web server, application server, and database. Okay, so here if you see, if you want to host one application, then we need web server and database also to store the data. Okay, so we need to run all the three components, and we can install all the three components in the same machine, but still it is not recommended. Means I can configure all these three components in the same EC2, but still that is not best practice. We can, if you want, I mean, if it is for the development environment, yes, we can install all the three components in the same machine. If it is something for production, basically in order to make sure of high availabilities, we will be creating multiple instances for multiple components. Okay, now why should we run our database on EC2? Okay, so as I said, we can execute our database in two different forms. One is I can run on EC2, one is I can use RDS service, right? So but what is the need why we want to run on EC2 instances? Basically what will happen is, when I will be using this EC2 instance, for example, let me provision one EC2. Okay, let me try to create one EC2. What happened? Okay, here we have this RDS service, so we'll not talk about RDS for now. So we'll see how without RDS, how can we install our database and how can we connect and how can we use them. Okay, so for example, this is my EC2, right? So let me click on launch instance. So let me use the example for MariaDB. Okay, I'm using MariaDB configurations. Okay, so Linux image T2 micro is okay, and Linux 01 key. This will be the default settings of my VPC. We are aware of these kind of settings, right? So I will be using test SG configuration and then launch instance. So what I am trying to do now, I'm trying to launch one EC2 and we'll try to install MariaDB in this EC2. Okay, so what's happening? So basically, in some cases, there might be some requirement that our database needs to communicate or access to the operating system of our EC2 instance. In such cases, we don't have any other option but to install our DB on the EC2 instance. Because when I'll be using RDS instance, I will be not aware which operating system has been used. In this case, I know that this is Amazon Linux 2 image, right? So when I'm using RDS instance, I will create one MariaDB server database, but I will not be aware on which EC2 or what was the operating system where MariaDB has been provisioned. I will not be aware of the details. Okay, so in such cases, if you want to access our DB to the operating system instance, then we need to install our database on EC2. Okay, apart from that, if suppose your client is demanding that you should use only EC2 to install database, in that case we can install our database on EC2. Okay, there will be some clients who don't want to use RDS service. The reason might be in terms of billing. Okay, so in that case what we can do, we need to create this. Okay, And then we have our DB or DB version, means basically if something which is not been provided by AWS, for example, I want to use the latest version of MariaDB. For example, assume that the latest version is 14 version, and that 14 version is not available on AWS RDS. In that case, what I will do? I will be using EC2 only. Okay, so these might be the different use cases where I will run my database on the EC2 instance. Okay, that's one thing. And then why we shouldn't run our database on EC2? Okay, so what we have seen why we should run. Okay, why we should not run? So basically what will happen if suppose I'm trying to run my database on EC2, this will be admin overhead, means we need to perform each and every activity. I mean, the maintaining is on our head, because if suppose you want to upgrade the EC2, you want to upgrade the version of software, then each and everything we need to take care. Okay, and we need to take care of the backups, and we need to take care of the DR as well. DR means disaster recovery. Okay, so we need to take care of the backup as well as the disaster recovery. Okay, so this is something what the admin needs to be doing. Okay, and we need to make sure that the EC2 is running in single EAZ, means the database where we are trying to create will be running on one single availability zone, right? So again, that will be a problem if that availability zone is down for some reason. Okay, and we will also miss the latest feature which we are getting from AWS. I mean, if suppose AWS is providing some features, right? So we will be missing that features as well if I am installing my database on the EC2. Okay, and the performance will be slower than AWS options. Basically, whatever the AWS RDS is providing, we will not be getting all that options, and the performance comparing to that of RDS will be slow on the EC2 instance. So these are the different reasons why we should not run our database on EC2. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, now we'll see how can we install one database on EC2 instance. Okay, so we'll check the difference between EC2 installation and then the installation on the RDS. Okay, then we'll understand, okay, what is the difference between RDS and EC2. Okay, so we'll try to use a manual process, and let me try to set up MariaDB. Okay, so here we have the configuration. So let me I have already installed launched one of the instance, right? So let me connect to this instance. I'm using AWS Session Manager to connect. Okay, if you want, you can use git bash mobile xterm. Okay, so let me change this to root users. What happened? Shit. Basically, this has executed. I mean, the complete file what I have copied, it has been pasted. Okay, so let me copy this sudo su hyphen means what will happen? What will happen? This will switch to the root user. Okay, and then let me install MariaDB server as well as wget as well. Basically, wget is already installed, so not required. So I am installing two different packages. It will install MariaDB. Now let me enable. What will happen? Even after restart, it will automatically start the service without any manual intervention if I'll use enable. Okay, then we'll try to start MariaDB. Okay, if I'll do systemctl status MariaDB, then we can see that this is active and running, and by default this will be running on port number 3306. Okay guys, remember one thing, if you have installed databases, then we cannot access them on the browser because these are not web applications. Only web applications can be accessed on browsers. Okay, so this is not web application, so we cannot access database on the browser. Remember that point. And by default, this is running on port number 3306. If you want, let me check instead, or else let me use ls of -i TCP colon 3306. So what will happen? It will show the service which is been running. See, MySQL daemon is running on 3306. Basically, MariaDB, Postgres, these all also we call as SQL servers only. Okay, because these are the structured query language. Basically, that's not the name. It's a kind of query language what these guys are using. Okay, now we have installed our MySQL database. Okay, so now let me try to connect to my DB. Okay, now let me try to connect to my DB. So here what we have did, we have configured some of the environmental variables. Basically the database name, it should be EC2F1 DB. Okay, and the database password, this is admin123456, root password 123456, and DB user EC2 DB user. Okay, so these are the different variables what I want to configure. So I don't want to pass the passwords again and again. That's the reason I'm trying to configure. Here if you'll see, the moment I will execute this, what will happen? $db underscore dem. So it will pick EC2F1 DB. Okay, so let me configure this. I can copy 4 at the same time and I can paste. Okay, if you want to check what is stored in DB name, say EC2DB. Okay, so whenever I'm trying to echo this, each echo $db name, what's the output? EC2DB, because this is what we have stored as the environmental variables. So basically these are a kind of temporary storage. If I restart my machine, these environmental variables will be not available. Okay, so once done, now let me okay, 1 second guys. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so once done, then we'll try to create some database, and then we'll try to again log in to my database. Okay, so here we have some commands, so let me use this. So what's happening? Echo create database $db underscore name. Basically create database called EC2DB. We have installed our database, but we haven't created any DB, right? So I'm trying to create one database with a name called EC2DB. Okay, why are we creating any database? Basically I want to store some data, right? So I have installed but I haven't used anything, so I want to create one database so that I can store some information. Okay, here if you'll see, whatever it is been getting created, I mean this is just a message. I'm trying to store this in one file called tmp.db.setup. If I'll go to /tmp, okay, and then if I'll try to do db.setup, what will happen? Say create database EC2DB. So I'm trying to store all this information in one file, and then we'll push this to the database. Okay, so and then I'm trying to create one user, echo create user, and then db.setup. So we'll try to execute this. I'm trying to create one username, db user. What is the username? It is EC2DB user. Okay, and then we'll try to create permissions. Okay, so whatever user I have created DB user, so he should get the complete permissions on the database. So these are the different commands. I will share one document, you can go through it. Okay, and then I am using one command called echo flush privileges. So basically what flush will do, this command will help us to refresh our content. I mean the table, whatever permissions we have changed, right? So whenever we change something in SSHD, what we do, we try to restart the service. So when we use flush in databases, what will happen? It will refresh everything, like it will check what are the different changes happened, and it will help us with the latest access. Okay, so I have executed 4 commands in db.setup, and then now I am trying to connect to my database. So this is also one of the command. Okay, MySQL admin-u. So let me connect this. Okay, execute it, and then let me try to connect now. MySQL-u, then redirect to temp. So now what I am trying to do, I am trying to insert the complete db.setup, that file what we have created, right? So I am trying to insert this. If you see, the redirection is in the reverse order. So I'm trying to insert this in my database. Okay, and then let me remove the existing file what we have created. If you want, we can ignore, or else you can delete. Okay, delete it. Now what I have did, I have basically set up some, I have set up the DB on my EC2 instance. So now let me log into my instance, my database, and try to check. So how to log in? You can use this command, MySQL-u, username is root, and then -- password. Okay, so password, it has picked from the environmental variable. Now if you see this interface, so we are connected to our MariaDB database. Okay, and this is the version what we have been using. Okay, so this is how our database will looks like. Okay, now let me try to switch to database. So let me check how many databases are available. So show databases. Here it will show these are the different databases which are available. So by default, it will get created information schema, MySQL, performance, and test. So this is what I have created, EC2DB. If you see this, create database DB name is EC2DB. Okay, so this is what I have created. So now I want to use this database. So what we can do, use EC2DB. So here it will get changed. Earlier it was none. Now we are using our EC2DB database. Okay, and then let me create one table called table1, and the ID of ID will be of integer and name will be of varchar. So basically these are the different type of strings I can say. If you want to store anything, then we can use varchar. If you want to store some numeric, then we can use integer values. Okay, so these are the different data types. Okay, so we'll not focus on data types and all, we'll just see the basic stuff. Okay, so I'm trying to create one table. Okay, query, okay, 0 rows affected, something happened in the backend. And now let me try to insert some value. So what I'm trying to do, I have created one table called table1. Now I'm trying to insert some values in my table1. Okay, so the integer ID means integer value, that is 1, and the name is Virat. Okay, and then we have the ID as integer value, that is 2, and the name is Sachin. So I'm trying to insert some values in my database. So I'm inserting 4 values: Virat, Sachin, Dhoni, and ABD. Okay, hit enter. What happened? Okay, this is already existed, right? So let me copy this. Insert into table1, and the values. What happened? Unexpected error. Let me provide some space. Okay, this is not getting executed. Let me check. There is some syntax error. Okay, I have used Control C and I got exited out of my MariaDB database. Here, if you see, currently I'm in my root. So let me try to connect to my MariaDB again. Okay, now I am in my MariaDB. Use EC2DB. This is my database. Now let me insert that value. Okay, 4 rows has been affected. Now if you want to see the content of your database, then we can use select star from table1. This basically select everything from table 1. If I'll paste, hit enter, here we can see the values what we have inserted. Okay, so what I have did, I have created one basic table, I mean one database, one table, and I have inserted 4 different values. Okay, so if you want to check this, then we can use select star from table 1. Okay, it will display the complete information of our DB. Okay, so this is how we can set up our database on the EC2 instance. Understood?
Yeah, we can understand.
Guys, others?
Sir.
Ahmad, Ganesh, Harita, Jagan.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So this is how we can create one DB. I mean, we can install some database on our EC2 instance. We can create some tables and insert the data. Okay. So how this data?
Anna,
Yeah.
for MariaDB to set up, we have this process. For another database, we have to install it. Same
If you want
process.
to install MySQL, then you need to check for the document. అన్ని ఎట్లా వర్క్
Okay.
అవుతాయి ఇది MySQL కి ఇది సారీ MariaDB కి దానికోసం కమాండ్స్ సేమ్ ఉంటాయి.
Okay.
Okay, these commands will be almost similar. There will be no change in commands, but only in terms of packages. This one, this command will get changed. These commands will get changed. Okay, so for example, if you want to install MySQL, that's what you guys are going to do after this session. Okay, if you want to install MySQL, then you need to search for the MySQL documentation. Okay.
Okay.
So, but irrelevant of database, this is how we can create, set up the database, connect, and create some dummy data in our database. Okay. So now what we have seen that how can we create one EC2, install DB, and configure our database on the EC2 instance, right? So now we'll see the RDS part. So how easy we can provision on RDS database. Okay, first thing is we should understand the process. I mean, what was the difficulties we were seeing on EC2? What we have did in EC2, we were installing the packages, everything we need to do on our own. Okay, now let us see how RDS will help us to easily maintain and set up our database, right? So now in RDS, we need to remember some few important points. That is, if we want to create one database, I mean, if you want to connect to one database, then we should connect with the CNAME. What do you mean by CNAME?
Canonical authority authorization, I think.
Canonical name. Okay. What we have seen in Route 53, we have configured one canonical name on ACM certificate. Right? We have created one C record in Route 53, and that C record was related to our SSL certificate, right? So if you want to connect to this DB, there will be no IP address. We should connect via CNAME. That's the first thing what we need to remember. Okay. Then RDS uses standard database engines. Okay, so in database engines, we have 3 type of database engines. We have db.m5, that is general category. Then we have db.r5, that is memory category, and then we have db.t3 burst instances. Okay, so these are the different type of database engines which are available in RDS. Okay, and when we provision an instance, we also provision one EBS storage that is dedicated to instance. So what is happening is, whenever I'm trying to create one RDS database, okay, that will create in terms of instance only. There it will be showing as DB instance. Here what we were seeing, EC2 instance. Okay, in RDS we will see as DB instance, means it is also provisioning some EC2 only. So what's happening for this EC2, what we have did, we have created, I mean, one EBS volume is created, right? So similar to this, Similar to this, for example, if I'm trying to create one MariaDB RDS, okay, so what will happen? One EBS volume will get created. Okay, so one EBS volume will get created, and this is where we are storing our data, right? So in if we are provisioning EC2, where are we storing our data? We are storing our data in EBS only. So even for database instance, it will get created. I mean, one EBS volume will get created, and we are storing our volume on the EBS only. Okay, guys, understood? Guys, please unmute yourself and let me know. This is very important. I just don't want to proceed. Okay. So basically, whenever we are trying to launch one EC2, we are also creating one EBS volume, right? If suppose I have created one EC2 just now, if I'll go to volume, here I can see one volume of 8 GB, which is attached to that EC2 instance, right? Similar to this, even if I'm provisioning one database instance in RDS, one volume will get created. Ikkade kada volume lone kada we are storing the complete data. So whatever tables, documents, files I'm trying to save, that will be saved in the volume only. Okay. Without volume, we cannot create one EC2. We cannot create one RDS instance as well. Okay.
Okay.
Latif, if you have any question, then let me know. If no, then go on mute. Okay. So whenever we provision one instance of DB, we are also creating one EBS storage that is dedicated to that instance. Okay. And EBS storage will also be in the same region. Yeah, basically wherever we are trying to create our instance, that's the region where the EBS volume will also get created. Okay. And then if suppose our EBS volume is getting failed, basically if our EBS volume or the storage where we have stored our data, right, if that is getting failed, then the RDS database will also get failed to operate, right? Because the complete data is stored on the EBS, so the data is getting stored over here. If suppose something happened and this is failed, we can't search for this MariaDB queries, right? So I can't run select star table one because the complete data is being stored in this EBS volume only. So if this is failing, then RDS database will also get failed. Okay. So now,
Allah,
yeah,
in both database, similar content will be available or different?
we are not creating both database. We are creating only one database. So this is my MariaDB instance. This is the volume which is been attached. So I have created only one DB.
My doubt is EBS will be stored something and database the DB values also store something. That the content will be same in those.
No, Ganesh, basically, if suppose I want to store some data in this MariaDB RDS, right? So if I'm trying to execute some queries, it will be stored in this EBS. It will not be stored over here. This is just an instance.
Okay.
If suppose in this EC2, what you have did just now, I have executed some dummy data. So where this data has stored, this EC2, I have created some data, right? So I have created some information. So where this data is stored, this data is stored in this volume, which is being attached to that instance.
Okay. Okay.
So data will not be present at both the locations. Data will be stored in the volume only. So here there is no data. The data it is trying to fetch is from this volume in the backend. Similar to RDS also, this will be on the same functionality. Okay. Now let us try to provision one RDS. Okay, let me search for RDS service. Click on RDS. What happened? Guys, if you are connected to Wi-Fi mobile phones, please unplug for some time. Okay, so this is how our database page will looks like. Here we can see DB instances. How many instances we can create? We can create up to 40, and currently we have 0. Okay, and then allocated storage is 0 TB. I mean, we haven't used anything. Out of 100 TB is available. So let me try to create one database. So click on create database. Okay, here we have two different type of options, that is standard and easy create. So easy create, what it will do, it will use some of the best practices available in AWS and it will create everything for us. Okay, if I'm using standard, then I can select which option I want to enable, which option I don't want to enable. Okay, that's the difference between standard and easy create. So we will be always using standard, do not go for easy create. Okay, and here if I scroll down, then here we can see what type of engine you want, means which database you want to create. In my case, what I will do, I will use MariaDB database, because just now we have installed MariaDB, right? So let me use MariaDB. So this will be either our database engine which we are trying to launch. Okay, and then if I scroll down, here we can see the engine version, means MariaDB version. If I click here, so 10.6.10, this was something latest, and again we have 6.12, 6.11. So we have different type of MariaDB databases which are available. So which version you want, you can select from here. Okay, and here we have three type of template, that is production, development, and free time. So for which environment you are trying to create, if suppose you are trying to create for production, then go for this production options, because it will help you to enable different kind of options. I mean, in terms of consistent performance and in terms of high availability, this can be used. If you are using for development environment or for just testing purpose, then you can select this option and you can configure. So in my case, I mean, the billing will be very high. Okay, not much high. If you have deleted, then it is okay. If not, then the billing, we can see a lot of billing from RDS. Okay, so in my case, I will use free tier for explanation, and we'll try to enable a lot of options. Basically, in free tier, we will not be seeing a lot of options. So once created, slowly I will enable different options available in free tier as well. Okay, so then what should be the name? So this is name, so MariaDB. Okay, and the username means the login ID. What should be the credential you want to create? Admin is the username what I want to use to log in. Here if you see, we have created some usernames and passwords, right? So similar to this, we are trying to create the username as password, sorry, admin, and then I will create the password here. If you want to auto generate, then you can select this. So what will happen every time, I mean, the password will automatically generate it after creation of the database. Okay, so I don't want to auto generate, I want to create my own password, so I will use this option. Here we have one more option called manage master credentials in AWS Secret Manager. So what is this? If I'll open this service, AWS Secret Manager. So basically AWS Secret Manager is a different service which will help us to store credentials, some sensitive data, passwords, or some files which you don't want to expose to anyone. So in this case, we can use AWS Secret Manager, and this will be asked in the interviews as well. Have you used AWS Secret Manager? In this case, what you can say? You can say that yes, AWS Secret Manager we have been using to store passwords. Okay, so this is pretty simple. If you click on store a new key, then it will ask for the key and password, and which database you want to connect, you can select. So try to explore this option. I will not wasting much time on this. Okay, so try to explore secret managers as well. Then okay, I don't want to use this, so I want to create my password. So the password will be admin 123456. So basically it should be at least 8 characters. So I'm using this admin 123456. And here we can configure what type of instance class. I have already discussed, right? So we have three type of instance classes. One is memory optimized, one is bus optimized, and then we have one general category. Okay, so for free tier it will enable only bustable classes, includes T classes. Okay, and here we can select what type of instance we want. So here T3.micro, that is 2 core of CPS, 1 GB of RAM, similar to our AWS EC2, right? So if I select this, here we can find 1 core of CPU, 1 GB of RAM. So I will use this T2.micro only for testing, right? So this is okay. So let me use this T2 DB dot sorry T2.micro, and then here we can see storage. Okay, this is the volume part. Default or the minimum value what it will allow is 20 GB, whereas for EC2 it will allow only 8 GB, and the maximum value what we can see is 6144 GB we can use for our database. Ganesh, అర్థమైందా ఇప్పుడు? For this EC2 or T2.micro, we are creating one volume where this data will be stored.
Okay.
Okay, and storage auto scaling, so I don't want any kind of auto scaling. Let me disable this. And here we have one option called multi-agent deployment, so we'll talk about multi-agent in after few minutes. Okay, so here connectivity, I don't want this to connect to any of the EC2 instance. Okay, if you want to connect to any EC2 instance, you can select this, you can select the instance, then the connection will be automatically generated. Okay, so in my case I don't want to use this, don't connect. Okay, whether you want IPv4 or dual stack, means IPv4 and v6, which both are supported. So I mean for now I want IPv4, and this is my subnet. Which subnet you want to create? I mean VPC, so we'll select default VPC only. And then this is my DB subnet group where we want to launch our database. If you haven't created anything, then by default it will get it will pick the default one. Or if you want to create, then you can scroll up, you can select, and you can select this option subnet group, and you can create one subnet if you want. Okay, so let me use default only. And then where are we? Okay, now do you want to have public access, means outside our VPC you want to access, then we can go for yes. If no, then we can go for no. So in our case, I don't want my database to be accessed outside the VPC, because database is something which is very, which will have a lot of information related to my business or clients. I don't want this to be exposed to the internet, so I don't want to use public access. Okay, now VPC for firewall, which firewall you want to access? Basically, as I said, we are using 3306 port number, right? So I will use test SG because all the ports are open for this security group. Okay, which availability zone you want to deploy? So I want to deploy my database in 1A region in North Virginia. 1A is my availability zone, and then certificate is not required. So if I click on additional configuration, so this is the port number of my database which it will try to connect. And then what type of authentication? So I have created password, so I will use password authentication. So if you want to go for IAM, then we can go for one IAM role. Okay, and then if you want to configure any monitoring, we can use monitoring as well. Okay, and if I click on additional configurations, this will be the initial database name, means it will try to create one basic database. While launching this instance, it will also create one database in our DB instance. Okay, so these are the parameter groups. These are something which we can go for default only. And here we have one more option called backup. So what happening if suppose I have launched this in my EC2, if you want to take the backup, then I need to take the backup manually. That's on my head. My means admin, database admin, whoever is database admin, he should take the backup manually. So whereas if I use AWS service, AWS will create automated backups. Okay, and what should be the retention period? Means once the backup is taken, then it will be keeping this for 7 days. After 7 days, this will get deleted. Okay, so if you'll click enable automated backup, then what will happen? AWS will automatically take the backup. At what time it will take the backup? Here we can see the option backup window. Choose a window means you can select, okay, daily 22 o'clock UTC time, you can take the backup. So what will happen every day at exact 22 means 10 o'clock, this will try to take the backup based upon the window, and UTC is a timing. Okay, so in my case, I don't want any kind of backup for now. Okay, so that will be enabled. If you want to push these logs to the CloudWatch dashboard, then you can select these logs as well. So I will not be using this now. So maintenance. So we have one more feature available by RDS, that is enable auto minor version upgrade. Means whenever if AWS will see that a different version has been available in the market or in AWS, it will automatically upgrade your database as well. If you use enable auto minor version upgradation. Okay, if you will not select this, then there will be no upgradation. We need to manually upgrade. Whenever you want, you can select and upgrade your database. Okay, so this is something, again, the maintenance, on which day you want to upgrade, at what time the upgradations needs to be happened. For example, what is the version of this DB? For example, the version is 5.5.68. If the version 5.6.0 is available, then what this will do? This will automatically take the backup and upgrade our database. Okay, so we are not doing anything. We are just enabling these options, and AWS will do this. क्या बात है, श्रीनिवास और ख्वाजा जफीरुद्दीन को दोनों को बात ना लगाए. Okay, understood. So I don't want any kind of maintenance as well, because I will be deleting this after this session, right? So not required. So no preference. No preference means what will happen? It will upgrade as per the availability. We are not specifying any time and duration. Okay, and then these are the different type of billings what we can see on the instances. So once done, let me click on create database. So what will happen? One database instance will get created. Here if you see, we have deployed our database in one region, and this is the size and this is the status. So it will take couple of minutes to create. Okay, till then we'll wait. Apart from waiting, we can't do anything. Okay, so this is the VPC ID, and this is the multi-agent. Means I haven't created multi-availability zone, right? So this is not enabled. Okay, so if I'll click my MariaDB, so here we can see one endpoint will get created after provisioning. So as of now, still it is in creating status only, right? So it will take some time. Then we can see different options what we have configured, that this is my availability zone, this is my VPC, this is my subnet group, and these are the subnets where this is available, and the network type is IPv4. This is a certificate which has been attached. Publicly accessed, no. And this is my target security group, and we can monitor this if we have enabled. Okay, as of now I haven't enabled anything, right? So I will not be able to see this. Okay, we have different configurations. Okay, we can see this will be the version of my DB, and this is the user ID, and this is the password. Okay, so we can see a lot of information what we have used to create our DB. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes to create this, then we'll try to connect to our database. Guys, in meantime, if you have any questions, then let me know. Yes.
ఇప్పుడు మనం 1 GB ర్యామ్ 20 GB తీసుకున్నాం కదా, అది 1 GB ర్యామ్ మస్ట్ అండ్ షుడ్ మనకు, అది లేదంటే ఇంకా ఎక్కువ కానీ తక్కువ కానీ తీసుకోవడం?
దానికంటే తక్కువ అయితే లేదు, దానికంటే ఎక్కువ కావాలంటే నువ్వు తీసుకోవచ్చు. బేసికల్లీ 1 GB నేను ఎందుకు తీసుకున్నా, ఫ్రీ టైర్ మైక్రో సర్వీస్ కాబట్టి, ఓన్లీ ఫర్ టెస్టింగ్ కాబట్టి తీసుకున్నా. ఇఫ్ యూ ఆర్ యూజింగ్ ఫర్ ప్రొడక్షన్ దెన్ దట్ కేస్ మైట్ చేంజ్ అండ్ ద నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ కోర్ ఆఫ్ సిపియూస్ మైట్ ఆల్సో గెట్ చేంజ్.
ఓకే.
నీకు EC2 లాంచ్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు నువ్వు ఏం తీసుకుంటావు, రెగ్యులర్గా మైక్రో తీసుకుంటావు. ఓకే, కొన్ని కేసెస్లో ఇప్పుడు ప్రొడక్షన్ సర్వర్స్ అనుకో మైక్రో తీసుకుంటే రన్ అవుతుందా, ఎక్కడంటే టెస్టింగ్ కోసం మైక్రో పెట్టుకున్నాం. ఓకే, సో దట్ డిపెండ్స్ నీ డేటాబేస్కి ఎంత యూసేజ్ ఉంది, ఎంత వాల్యూమ్ ఉంది, ఎంత యూజర్స్ యాక్సెస్ చేయడానికి ట్రై చేస్తారు అనేది.
అన్న
ఎస్,
అది ఇప్పుడు వాల్యూమ్స్ అనేది మనం చూస్ చేసుకుంటాం కదా, అది మనకి ప్రాజెక్ట్ లో వాళ్ళు మెన్షన్ చేస్తారా సో అండ్ సో ఇంత తీసుకోవాలని రియల్ టైంలో?
నువ్వు ఇన్ కేస్ RDS ఇన్స్టెన్స్ లాంచ్ చేస్తుంటే వాట్ షుడ్ బి ద వాల్యూమ్ సైజ్, వాట్ షుడ్ బి ద ఇన్స్టెన్స్ టైప్, అవన్నీ డీటెయిల్స్ నువ్వు అడగాలి. ఇప్పుడు నువ్వు ఒక కంపెనీలో జాయిన్ అయినావు, RDS లాంచ్ చేయమంటే నువ్వు టపా ఇక్కడ వచ్చి అరే అన్న నేర్పించిండు కదా, RDS సెలెక్ట్ చేసినాం కొట్టినాం అయిపోయింది అనుకో. యూ షుడ్ ఆస్క్ some questions, for example like which region, what should be the RDS type, okay, what should be the capacity of that instance, okay, whether you want to enable multi-AZ, whether you want to enable the backup, if yes what should be the window maintenance. ఇవన్నీ క్వశ్చన్స్ వాళ్ళకి అడగాలి. నువ్వు అడగకుండా నువ్వు టపా క్రియేట్ చేసేసి అయిపోయింది టాస్క్ డన్ అని పెట్టినావు అనుకో, రివర్స్ అయిపోద్ది మ్యాటర్ నీకు.
ఓకే
ఓకే, so even guys, I mean what he asked is very sensible question. Okay, so even if you want to launch one EC2, for example you have joined any company and you got one request to launch one EC2, so there are some important or basic questions what you need to ask. What should be the instance image, what should be the region, what should be the type, what should be the volume, what should be the region, what should be the key pair, what should be the VPC, ఇవన్నీ అడగాలి మనం. ఏదో ఇచ్చేసిండు మనకు వచ్చేసింది కదా అని నువ్వు కొట్టేస్తావంటే వర్క్ అవ్వదు అక్కడ. ఓకే, ఫస్ట్ యూ ట్రై టు ఆస్క్, ఇఫ్ విల్ టెల్ దట్ నో మ్యాన్ యూ కెన్ క్రియేట్, ఐ మీన్ యూ కెన్ యూజ్ నాట్ వర్జినియా అండ్ యూ ట్రై టు క్రియేట్ సమ్ బేసిక్ ఫ్రీ టైర్ database, in that case you can disable a lot of options and you can create. Later on if you want then you can again enable, right? So we can, if suppose I want to enable some options, right here if you see multi-agent I haven't enabled. Now if I want to create I will create this. Okay, बोलो मुजीब क्या चाह रहे हैं?
कुछ भी नहीं, वो क्या बोलते हैं, if I created
Data
database,
खाली
नहीं if I created database, he told me to change the instance type, I forget it to change that instance type and availability zone. So after creating database we need to edit that availability zone and database, right?
Okay, select this database, modify. Okay, you can scroll down and you can check which instance type you want to change and create.
Okay,
so we have the default settings, lot of settings are available, just try to explore. You can edit even if for example if there is no option. So since that was a new database you can delete and you can create a new database.
Okay, we can create, right?
Yes. Okay, this session will be somewhat lengthy, but this is I have tried to capture all the important points. Okay, so I don't want you guys to miss this.
One more doubt, Sabir bhai.
Yes.
While creating MySQL table, we have given ID int.
Yes.
And varchar.
Yes.
In varchar you have mentioned 45. It will support up to 45 characters, right?
Yes.
We can give.
Yes. If you want to give for 50, then you can go for 50.
Okay, if I don't want to give 45.
You can go for n, I guess. I'm not sure whether we can use n. If you want to use that depends automatically. If you want to select that, I think we can use n, but not sure. I see database commands and all, that is not our stuff here.
Okay,
we should know the basic commands.
Okay, just
okay, you no need to worry about the primary key and the unique key, the composite keys, what are the different CRUD operations. Okay, we'll focus on RDS backups, restores, creation.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want, you try to explore, checked what are the different data types available and how we
Okay.
can configure. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
guys, try to do some R&D, try to search, try to change the options. ఈ వీడియోలో ఎట్లా వస్తుందో ఎగ్జాక్ట్ అట్లనే నేను దింపేస్తా అంటే waste of time మీకు. Okay, try to explore as well. Okay, so yeah, our database is ready, available. So now if I'll click here, we can see one endpoint has been created. So this is what I was talking about. If you remember, this is nothing but the canonical name, cname, and this is our port number. Okay, now I have created one database. I want to connect to this database. How can I connect to this database? Okay, so let us see that, and apart from that we'll also try to work on some very important concept. Okay, so migrating database from EC2 to RDS. So this will be asked, I mean, have you ever migrated any application from physical machines to cloud or anything what you have migrated? So in that case you can say that you have involved in migrating database from EC2 to RDS. Okay, so first what we need to do is we need to get the dump of your existing DB on EC2. So on our EC2 machine, what we have did, okay, let me exit. Okay, so this is my EC2 DB, right? So what we have did, we have created one DB and I have created some values, right? So I want to take that backup. Okay, I want to take the dump. Okay, oh, shit. So what I can do, I can use this command, mysql dump -u root. -u means user, -p means password. Okay, basically password, it will ask the user to enter the password, and then the database, which database you want to take the backup. So in my case, what was the database name? That was EC2DB. Okay, and then take that backup in this particular file. Okay, so let me copy, let me try to paste. Okay, so let me change this one. What was my database name? EC2DB was the database what I have created, and the file name should be, I will use EC2DB only. Okay, now it is asking me to enter the password, that is admin 123456. Okay, so this is related to my database on EC2. Okay, I haven't connected to my RDS yet, so I am trying to take the backup. Okay, here if I do ls, I can find one file called ec2db.sql. So what I have did, I have taken the backup of this database called ec2db. Okay, once done, migrate the db dump that you have taken in step 1 to RDS. Means from EC2 I want this to push this to RDS. Okay, so how can you do this? So let me copy this command. Okay, let me paste here, mysql and h means host. So what is my endpoint here? So this is my endpoint. So let me copy. Okay, this is my endpoint, and then -p means port number, -u means username. What is the username what I have created for the DB, I mean for my RDS? That is admin, right? And then -p, then the database name. Okay, database name, have we created any default database? Let me check the configuration. DB name, I don't think so I have created anything. Okay, so database name, I haven't created any DB, right? So let me do one thing, let me use one database called RDS DB. Okay, let me create one new DB as well, and this data should be dumped into this database. Okay, copy and try to paste. Okay, now it is asking for password related to admin, means our RDS instance, admin 123456. So this was my password. Unknown database RDSDB. Okay, basically there is no user called RDSDB, right? So let me do one thing. So let me first try to log into my RDS. So how to log in? MySQL-H host name, this is my host name, -p, this is port number, that is 3306, -u is admin, -p means password, and then I can hit enter. So now it is asking for password, admin 123456. What happened? Admin 123456. Okay, yeah. Now if you see this, welcome to MariaDB monitor, server version 10.6.10 MariaDB managed by https://aws.com/rds. So now I am connected to my RDS instance. Okay, so if you want to connect to your RDS instance, this is how we can use. Okay, now let me check the different databases available, because I was trying to dump and it was not executing, right? So I don't remember the database name. So let me check show databases. It will show all the different databases which are available. So basically there is no such database called RDSDB. Okay, now let me try to copy this and create one database. Okay, create database. Try to copy all these commands. Okay, database RDSDB. Yes, if I'll try to show databases now, yes, we have one database created. Okay, now let me try to dump, because earlier it was getting filled because there was no such database, right? So I have created manually. Exit. Now let me try to execute the same command and dump my data. Okay, so MySQL-H-p, this is my database name where I want to dump my data, and this is the file of my backup of my EC2 DB. Hit enter. It is asking for password, admin 123456 is my password. Done. Okay, so if you are saying plain as output, then it means the file has been successfully done. In our case, it took very, I mean, it was a milliseconds of time because the data is very low, right? So, but if you have 1 GB of or 2 GB of data, then it might take some time to push these files from EC2 to DB. Okay, so we have successfully pushed these changes. Now let me try to again connect to my DB instance and try to verify my database. Okay, we want to verify as well, right, whether the changes has been moved. Okay, now let me try to connect to my instance, I mean my RDS. RDS means I'm trying to call this DB server. Okay, EC2 DB means what we have installed on our EC2 machine. So now I'm trying to connect to my RDS instance. Hit enter. Admin 123456. Okay, MariaDB, this is my AWS RDS. Okay, show databases, it will show the databases. Now I want to use this particular database. So what I can do, I can use use RDS DB command. This will connect to my RDS DB. Same like git commit, git branch, what we had. If I want to change the branch, git checkout and then branch name. So there we were using checkout, here we are using use command to switch to the different database. Okay, now let me check select star from table 1. So what will happen? See, we are able to see 4 different files. Okay, so what we have did, where we have created these files earlier on the EC2 DB, right? I have taken one dump and I have migrated successfully from one location, from my DB EC2 to my RDS DB. Okay, so this is how we can migrate, and this is how we can connect, and we can cross check all our details as well. Guys, understood?
Yes, sir.
Birwai, if I forget the password, I am unable to open the file in that case.
First thing is keep some passwords which you will not forget. Okay, if you forget the password, then you will not be able to connect. What
Is
we can
there
do, I need to take the snapshot of this DB, launch one new DB, creating a new password. If suppose you have lost the PEM key, what will do? of EC to PEM key. If you are lost, what you will do? You will take
Yes,
one
we take this
snapshot
snapshot. Yes,
and create a new EC2 by using new PEM key. So
PEM
same
key.
kind of process we need to follow in DB.
Okay.
Okay, but make sure that you are not forgetting that password. Okay, you can forget important people from your life, but not these passwords. Okay.
Okay.
आनंद फेल हो यार क्या? Okay, so guys, understood how we can connect to RDS. Okay, and then we have one more important concept. Okay, मुझे basically I will try to back up. I will try to restore as well. Okay, let me fix that as well. So for now, we'll focus on one more concept. We have something called RDS multi-AZ. Multi-AZ means what? Multi availability zone. Basically, that's for high availability. So what will happen? If I'll create multi-AZ, what will happen? As someone will talk. RDS. Okay. So this will be in one subnet and this will be in one subnet. For example, AZ1, okay, and AZ2. Multi-AZ. When we create multi-AZ, what will happen? Basically, one more copy of our database will get created. Okay. If you see this, sorry.
Standby instance.
Yes, standby instance. Okay. What do you mean by standby, Anand?
When you go into down the RDS, we can ఎప్పుడైతే సర్వర్ డౌన్ అవుతే అది టేక్ కేర్ చేసుకుంటాం.
Yes. Okay, let me I mean what Anand said is absolutely right. So whenever the server is down, then the standby instance will get to work. Okay, so
Actually, it's extra copy of a production database in your AZ availability.
yes, right, right.
Same data available or different?
अरे यार सेम डाटा बेस को कॉपी कर रहा तो सेम डाटा रहता ना, दूसरे डाटा बेस
yeah,
कैसा रहता?
Nice.
Stop asking. I mean, okay, go for any questions whatever you are getting in your mind, but make sure that you are asking something which is very sensible. If you are trying to create I mean, what we have did, we have created these 4 columns, then the same data will be available in the another database. We will not be able to see Rohit Sharma and Piyush Chawla, all these details, right?
Okay, fine.
एक हिट मुजीब बस है और एक रेप्लिका नको मुजीब का हमारे को. Okay, so we'll get back to our topic. Okay, so I was talking about multi-AZ. So currently, if you see this, I haven't used multi-AZ option. Okay, no, I have selected no. So if I'll click here and here, if I'll see in the configuration here, we can see my multi-AZ is no, and there is no secondary zone created. Okay, so whatever I have created, this is in availability zone 1A. Okay, so in US East 1A, what I have created my AZ. So means there is no one more copy of my RDS instance. So what will happen? For example, if you have only one database, for example, for any reason, the reason might be any natural cause or anything. If this RDS is failed, what will happen? Then the user will not be able to access our data, right? They will not be able to access our data. So that's the case. What we do, we try to create multiple availability zones even on the deployment. If you see the architecture, so we'll try to create multiple EC2s, right? So in terms of RDS, what we do, we create multi-AZ. So multi-AZ, what will happen? For example, this is user. Okay, if the user is trying to access anything, or else let me open the diagram. I think I have seen this diagram. Okay, yeah. This diagram is good, so let me use this. Okay, so what is happening if I'm using multi-agent? So whenever this is about database. Okay, so this is my primary connection and this is my secondary connection. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me draw. Okay, so the user is trying to access, so this will be my primary connection, means my primary database, primary DB, and the multi-agent what we have created, this will be called as standby DB. Okay, so what is happening, the exact copy of my primary DB will be copied to the standby database when I'll enable multi-agent option. So what will happen, so whenever if someone is trying to write something to my database, if suppose this user is trying to write anything, is trying to enter some passwords or updating his details, then the details will be stored in this primary DB, and then by default it will also have one synchronization replication. Okay, so we have one synchronous replication. Okay, synchronous replication, what it will do,
Pass the information or message.
what do you mean by synchronous? What do you mean by replication? Replication means one copy. Okay, copying the exact data. Synchronous means continuously. So whenever any user is trying to add anything to our primary DB, then this primary DB data will be added to the standby database. For example, here we have some details called, okay, this user has written some detail called Techie Horizon in my database. Okay, then because in backend AWS is configured the synchronous replication, what will happen, this Techie Horizon data will be copied over here as well. This might take some time to replicate or copy, but still it will copy the data to my standby database as well. So what will happen now, same data is available in the primary DB as well as in my standby DB. Okay, so this is what we call as multi-agent configuration, and why it is used not only for standby. For example, because of some reason our database is not working as expected and AWS has detected that our database is not performing the activities, there is some failure on the DB. So what AWS will do, temporarily it will try to redirect the connections to our standby DB, because it also has the same database, right? So our AWS will automatically fail over to the standby DB. Remember the terminology, fail over. Okay, so once if the primary DB is not available or not responding, some failure happened, then the AWS will automatically detect and send all the requests on the standby DB. We are not going to do anything. AWS will take care of this. Okay, so what will happen, the request will be sent to standby DB and the users will be able to perform the activities on the database. And once this standby, what will happen, once the request has been sent, then AWS what it will do, it will make this as primary DB. Okay, and then it will make sure to restore the primary DB, I mean which has been failed, and this will be our standby now. Okay, so this will be our standby now. So this is what happened on multi-agent. So AWS is creating one copy of your database. Okay, and whenever the user is trying to access, it will send to the primary DB. If something happened to primary DB, then it will redirect to the standby DB. So once standby DB we are able to see the request, then standby will be AWS will make the standby as primary and primary as standby. Okay, so basically AWS is trying to help us with high availability and failover as well. Okay, here we have few important points. Guys, understood this one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so in yes.
Read replica ఎక్కడ వస్తుందా?
ఎవరు అడిగింది ఇది?
గణేష్.
గణేష్, రీడ్ రిప్లికా ఇంకా నేను అక్కడ వరకు వెళ్ళే. ఫస్ట్ లెట్ us focus on AZ and then we'll talk about read replica. Okay. End వరకు complete చేయలేదంటే then you can let me know. Basically, I will cover that. Okay. So multi-agent, this is what happening. So AWS will create one more database in the standby. Okay. If this is used, then this will be primary and this will be our standby. So if suppose you want to connect to standby DB, can we connect? I mean, primary is also okay and you want to connect standby DB. No, we cannot connect or access to standby DB. There is no way to connect it. AWS will only do the failover. We will not be able to connect manually. Okay. So remember these points and let us talk about some important points. So multi-agent option can be enabled on RDS instance. Okay. And it will create a replica or standby DB of original DB in another availability zone. Okay. So in another availability zone, one more replica or standby will get created. Okay. So let me try to create one multi-agent. Okay. As of now, we haven't created multi-agent, right? So if you see no, so let me create this. So if you want, okay, just select, click on actions, convert to multi-agent deployment. So let me select this. Okay, apply immediately, apply during the next scheduled maintenance window. If you remember, we have one scheduled maintenance. If I select this, what will happen? This will execute based upon our maintenance window what we have provided. Okay, so let me use apply immediately. Okay, and click on convert multi-agent. So what will happen? It will take some time and then it will create one agent for us. Okay, it will take some time and it will create one multi-agent DB instance. So what's happening when we are trying to create multi-agent? So it is trying to create one more instance, right? So one more RDS instance with a EBS volume attached for it. Even for standby, one EBS volume should be created. Okay. And here we have one important point that standby DB will be created in the same region. Means US, I mean, I was using North Virginia, so standby will also get created in North Virginia. If suppose availability zone is down, then it is okay, we have standby. If suppose complete region is down, then we can't do anything. Okay, we have lost our data. Okay, so multi-agent can be created in the same region. Okay, so and one more thing, RDS access only via database CNAME, right? So we are trying to access our database via colonial name. So we cannot access standby DB for any reason via RDS. So we cannot access our standby database. For any reason, we cannot access. Okay, standby replica cannot be used as extra capacity. Means, for example, our database, what we have did, we have 20 GB. Okay, standby, it will be also 20 GB, right? So we cannot assume that we have 40 GB of data. No, we have only 20 GB of data. This is not extra capacity. This is the copy of the primary DB. Okay, so we need to understand that standbys are not extra capacity. Okay. Synchronous replication means if something is written in the DB, then the same, or it should be. Okay, synchronous replication means if something is written in the DB, then the same will be replicated in the standby DB. Means, as I said, if I'm trying to write Techie Horizon, then it will replicate the same in my standby DB automatically. This we call as synchronous replications. So in order to replicate, that might take some gap. I mean, there might be some lag to copy, but still this is possible. Okay, so for what reasons multi-agent is available? This is helpful. If for some reasons primary is not working as expected, then AWS will detect and it will take 1 or 2 minutes to create a new instance. We call as failure. Basically, when I am talking that it will take 1 or 2 minutes to make these changes happen, so we call as failover. Why? Because there is some downtime of 60 to 120 seconds. That's the reason we call it as failover. So we can use multi-agent as failover only. Means if the primary is failed, then we can switch to secondary. Okay, or standby. So failover means it will have some downtime Fault tolerance means there will be no downtime. Guys, remember one thing: whenever you are trying to attend the interviews, you should be using all these terminologies. Okay, then it will make a very good impact on the interviewer as well. Okay, so basically fault tolerance means there is no downtime. Okay, and failover means if this is getting failed, then only we are trying to move to the other standby DB. Okay, and we have some important points. Multi-agent feature is not free and we need to pay twice the feature price. Means since I'm trying to replicate 1 by DB, one more database, I need to pay multiple. I need to pay twice the price. If suppose for one RDS it is 750 rupees, then I need to pay 1500 rupees for multi-agent, because we are provisioning a complete new RDS instance, right, to replicate our data. Okay, standby replica cannot be accessed directly unless a failure occurs. Until a failure occurs, we cannot access the standby. And failover is highly available, not fault tolerant. Okay, failover is highly available, not fault tolerant. Basically, we have some downtime, so we can say this is failover. Okay, and also, okay, one more important point: backups taken from standby. Multi-agent will be created in same region. So multi-agent, as we have seen, this will be created in same region but different availability zone. But if you see this, backups taken from standby, for example, this is our production database and we have lot of users who are trying to access our database. Okay, and you want to take the backup. So what will happen? If suppose there is no multi-agent, so I will be taking the backup from primary database, right? So whenever we are trying to take some backup, what will happen? Some CPU utilization will happen, some memory will be consumed. Okay, and at the same point of time we can see there is some impact on the performance. Okay, there might be some impact on the performance as well when we try to take backups on the primary DB without multi-agent. Okay, if suppose I have configured standby DB, I mean multi-agent is configured, so whenever if I want to take the backup, what AWS will do? AWS will take the backup from standby, because standby also has the same data. So AWS will take the backup from standby, so there will be no impact on the primary database. The performance will be fast and there will be no performance impacts on the primary database. Okay, so that is what I wanted to cover over here. Backups taken from standby removes performance impact. Okay, so this will be asked in interviews, what is multi-agent, how can you take the backup of your instance, and from where we will be taking. If multi-agent is configured, then you need to say that the backup will be taken care by the standby DB. There will be no impact on the primary database. Okay, so this is all about multi-agent. So we'll see if our multi-agent has been created or not. Yes, I think this is done. No, still modifying only. If you see the status, this is taking some time. Guys, yeah, let me know. Someone was asking something. Do you have any questions on multi-agent? Javeria, Ganesh, Anand, Harita?
No, I understood.
No.
Okay. Okay, so multi-agent configuration is being done, not yet done. So configurations. Okay,
I
here.
have one doubt.
Yes.
While taking ABS, we are getting the
Change
charges.
your headphones
Immediately.
or connect from some other one.
Here,
Yes.
while taking EBS for the backup, we are getting the charges for original EBS also. But same charges we are paying for replication. Instead of doing that taking values, we can go for EFS now. In EFS, can we backup by
See,
using EFS?
I was basically to this instance, one EBS volume will get created. Okay. So even if you are trying to create the multi-AZ, so AWS will launch one new EC2 with the same RDS instance and will create that will be attached to EBS only. We cannot attach EFS while starting to the EC2. That is not possible. Okay, so and even if suppose one EFS is configured to your database, so how it will support you? That is not possible when continuously the database is getting some new queries to write or read operations. So always there will be only one database. We'll have multi-agents configured and we have a kind of read replicas for it. So we cannot distribute that, we cannot say that we will be using EFS and the TFS will be used for multiple databases. No. Okay, if suppose the EFS is down, then for these two database you have configured one EFS. Okay, for example, this is our EFS. Okay, you have configured two databases and whatever you are writing over here, this is getting stored and this is getting replicated over here. Okay, if this EFS is down now, from where AWS will have the standby? Is there any source?
No.
Then so this is not possible. Okay, so for this standby there will be a different EC2. For this standby, for this primary there will be different EC2s. Okay, understood? Okay, now let me check. Yes, successfully converted DB instance MariaDB to multi-agent DB. Okay, so we have created multi-agent. If I'll scroll here, now we can see multi-agent is yes. If I'll open this, then if I'll go to configuration, here we can see where is my secondary zone. Okay, multi-agent is yes. Connectivities, if I'll scroll down, this is one A. Okay, MariaDB US East 1A is one of the instance replication. Okay. So once we have created multi-agent, we will not be able to see this. Are we able to see anything? Any other database over here? No. So we will not be able to connect as well. So what will happen? AWS will only understand if there is any failure, and this will redirect the request to the standby DB. Okay, that will happen in the backend. Okay, now if the primary DB endpoint, okay, here if you see, this is the DB endpoint of my primary DB which the users or the application is been using. If suppose the primary DB is down, so for the standby, what will be the endpoint? The endpoint will be same. This will not get changed either for primary or standby. So the endpoint will be same, but the DBs might get changed based upon the failover. Okay, this will managed by AWS only. Okay. Understood? So if you want to enable AZ, we can enable, but we can't really access to the availability zone. Oh, sorry, our standby database. Okay. Now we have one more thing called RDS backups and restores. Okay. In backup and restores, we have two important terminologies what we need to make sure to remember. One is RPO and one is RTO. Okay, so before digging deep into this backup, so let me tell you that why do we require backup? So basically in order to prevent any kind of disaster, if something happened, then at least we need to have some backup files, right? So for that purpose we'll be using backup. So how to take backup? So if we have enabled automatic backup, then we will need to provide one window maintenance window, what we have seen while creating our DB. I have shown you that, right? So we can use that. If we haven't configured that, for example, now I want to take the backup of my RDS. So if I select this, if I click actions, okay, here we can see turn on backup. Basically, the backups are not turned on this instance. Okay, so what I can do is I can take a snapshot. Okay, test MariaDB and click on take snapshot. What will happen? A backup is getting created. Okay, in this case, the moment I have to click on snapshot, what happened? The backup is being getting generated from the standby. From here it is trying to pick, right? Because we have used multi-agent, and what AWS will do, AWS will use standby to take the backup. It will not use the primary DB because the data is same. So AWS will not use the primary DB. It is using standby and it is taking one backup. Okay, so it will take some time to take the backup. So we'll discuss about backup and restores, and then we'll try to configure this, how this can be done. Okay, so here we have two important concepts or terminologies. One is RPO and one is RTO. So recovery point objective. What do you mean by recovery point objective? So time between the last backup and whenever the failure occurred. For example, currently what I have did, I have taken the backup at 1 o'clock. Okay, at 2 o'clock, I can see that something happened and my database has been failed. Okay, the duration between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock is 1 hour. So for that 1 hour, we call that 1 hour as recovery point objective. Okay, and we will lose this 1 hour of data. Basically, there is no chance. If you have multi-agents, if you have the backups and all, we can restore. But the duration, for example, I have taken a backup at 6 a.m. and the failure happened at 7 a.m. Then RPO for us, there are a lot of RPO is for 1 hour and we will lose 1 hour of data. Okay, the duration between the backup and the failure we call as RPO. Okay, amount of maximum data loss, business provides an RPO value, influence, technical solution, and case. Okay, means, for example, whatever we have lost, I mean the 1 hour of window what we have seen, right? So from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. the data has been lost, and business will provide RPO value, means the client will provide the RPO value. What should be the RPO value? Basically, we are maintaining the client applications, right? So they will do one SLA. SLA means service level agreement, that will a kind of contract between the client and our company to maintain that project. As part of the project only, he will tell that maximum RPO value will be 30 minutes only, means more than 30 minutes of data will impact their business. So that might be a case. So how to resolve this? In order to resolve this, we need database administrators and the experts, and then they'll try to put some technical interventions.
So voice is not audible.